Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our annual West Virginia Thoroughbred Breeders' Awards dinner. I know some people ask me, hey, are you guys going to get Ricky Gervais this year? You're stuck with me again one more year, even though Ricky did a great job at the Golden Globes. I tell you, this night right now, you're looking around the room, it really is the aristocracy of the West Virginia Thoroughbred Racing and Breeding Program. It is also a night where the blue bloods can rub elbows with just the mainstream horsemen who really are the backbone of our industry, who, as Ken alluded to, work tirelessly day in and day out. And the horses are everyone's love in this room, from the racing office that does a wonderful job in putting races together for us, to the starter who gets the horses away from the gate, to one of the premier race announcers in the country, young Paul Espinoza. I mean, we really do have a very shining example of how things are getting done properly. And thanks to people like Mr. Warner, who are going to support us, to John Funkhauser, to Mr. Miller, who tirelessly work every day so that the rest of us have a job here. And I want to thank those people significantly. You'll have to pardon me, I do have a cold. I'm struggling a little bit with my speech, but we'll do the best we can. We do have a group that has countless hours of activity, especially this time of year. Sleepless nights are part of everyone's condition right now with the breeding industry in full force. Foaling, I know everyone in this room right now is probably sitting with their phone awaiting a phone call that they've got a young horse getting ready to be born. But in my estimation, 2019, in the last few years that I've come up here and spoken to you, it always seems to me we have wonderful horses to talk about, and it always seems that I have to sometimes embellish things and accolades that West Virginia breds have done. In 2019, it was not that case. 2019 was a shining example of what you can do when people put their money and their interest into a West Virginia breeding and racing program. To me, it was the most significant dais of equine runners we've had in the history of West Virginia thoroughbred racing. And before we get into the main event, I know everyone's excited about the winners this year, but I'd like to just digress for a minute and talk about some of the things that were accomplished in 2019. To me, and these are certainly a subjective analysis on my behalf, but the number one thing that occurred on April the 20th of this year. Tim, do you know what happened on April 20th? April the 20th, there was a West Virginia bred named Runnin' to Love Ya who stepped onto the racetrack with some of the best and finest handicap horses in the country. And at the end of that race was victorious. And for me, I don't get goosebumps anymore with racing. I've been doing this for 50 years. But that was a goosebump moment. That was a moment where people cried on the apron. And people just really were so excited. The cheers and the recognition that that horse provided, it was something that I'm not sure we'll ever see again. I certainly hope we do in our era, because it was something that I think not even the group at the back table could probably project that a West Virginia bred was going to step forward and beat some of the best horses in the country. A horse that was born and raised right here in West Virginia, stepped onto the racetrack with the blue bloods of our industry and dominated the race. That, to me, was amazing. My second moment of the year was probably due to a horse that won a Grade 2 event. And I think a lot of times we have a tendency to forget what happens when it transpires early in the year. A filly named Late Night Powwow. We haven't seen her much over the last few months. And I think it was a tough decision by the people who were on the board of directors to ascertain whether or not you're going to use a horse that you haven't seen in competition in months. But I don't think you could defer to anyone else, because this filly's presence and her early year domination was something of just absolutely magical. This filly was a winner of the What a Summer Stakes, and then she won the prestigious Grade 3 Barbara Fritchie. As a young man growing up in the horse industry, the Barbara Fritchie was something that was just one of the biggest races we ever had in Maryland. It was the Barbara Fritchie and the General George Stakes. And that was something 30, 40 years ago you aspired to if you were a trainer, to hopefully win those type of races, or at least have a horse decent enough to compete in them. And a West Virginia bred won that race this year. Not in West Virginia, ventured beyond the comfortable confines of West Virginia to compete and win a Grade 3 race, as well as going down to Keeneland, probably one of the last vestiges of the brilliance of horse racing in this country. Probably Keeneland and Saratoga could be put in the same vein, and went down and competed and ran third in the Madison Stakes, a Grade 1 event. When you start talking about West Virginia breds competing on a national stage against horses of that quality, you have arrived, people. My third list, which I think also probably comprised a goosebump experience for me, was probably watching Mr. Casey win 3 races on Breeders' Classics night. He'll turn 90 in another week. And for him to win 3 races, coined the ageless one by some of our friends, Mr. Casey won 3 races on our night of champions, and winning the West Virginia Breeders' Classics that night with a horse that paid a whopping $86? 140. No, I didn't get all of my money. But that horse raised, broke, and trained within proximity of our 3/4 mile track here at Charlestown. Just another amazing story. And the fourth was probably the coronation of Anna's Bandit as being the blood horse, wittingest horse of the year, West Virginia bred. Another horse that I kind of consider the Wonder Woman of the Mid-Atlantic region because of her tenacity and the fact that she just is absolutely a horse that just defies the odds. She wants to win. And I'd like to mention that her jockey, Xavier Perez, is here with us tonight, one of the outstanding riders. You know, these aren't fairy tales and these aren't embellishments of what happened this year. In 2019, these actually were events that transpired. They were actually events that all of us have a lot to be proud of. Because from no more does someone walk and say, he's a West Virginia bred. Now they walk in and say, he's a West Virginia bred, and he's got a shot. So I fed you the appetizer. Let's get to the main course. We're going to try and look at some of the horses that were most deserving here tonight. If I could just mention, I'd like to say thank you, Ken Lowe, for putting on a wonderful show once again for us. Mr. Warner, I'd like to thank you, Secretary of State, for being here this evening. It's always important that we have people that understand our industry and want to see it grow and survive. It's a pleasure to have you amongst the crew here tonight.
So there I was in love with this young, beautiful young lady going to the University of Kentucky. So we go down there to do the things people do at the University of Kentucky, and she of course took me over to Louisville to the Kentucky Derby. And I have to tell you that my favorite day of the year, probably even more so than Christmas Day growing up, was the first Saturday in May. Now, I am not a horseman. You'll learn that very quickly here. I got more of an education today on horses than I ever did, but I love the Kentucky Derby. We'd go to our aunt's house, and she'd always pour my folks some bourbon, and I saw the real mom and dad at that point as we went through the day. And so there I was finally experiencing the Kentucky Derby for real. And I was so excited, and she got us in the infield. I don't know if it's seats, but she got in the infield anyway. So we get right up there, got up early, got right up against the fence. And you hear the start of the Kentucky Derby. And I'm so excited because I've watched it for years and years and years on television. And with my nose pressed up against the fence, all I felt was like a train coming. I mean, literally, the ground is shaking, and I see whoosh, a streak of brown, and that was it. That was it. That's all I saw. I didn't even find out who won for the next hour, okay, because I was stuck in the infield. You couldn't tell. I don't know if you all been on the infield or not, but it was a great day. I just couldn't tell a horse from a jockey from anything that day, but that was my experience with horse racing at the Kentucky Derby. I haven't been back. But, folks, all I want to tell you today, I've already been invited, I think, to 6 people's houses today, okay, to come stay or whatever. When you're in a crowd like that, where people just make you feel at home right from the start, I did get to spend the day at Jim Miller's and then John McKee's farms, and man, I am just so thrilled and enthralled with what the business that you all are in. It is fantastic. Anybody whose day starts at 4:30 in the morning and works through till sundown or whatever has got to be just the salt of the earth, the best people on the face of the earth. I'm learning so much about the business. Do with everybody that you possibly can what I'm doing. Take me in, teach me the ropes, because you've got a fantastic business. It means so much to the entire world, not so much to the state as well as the world. I've been over to Dubai. I've seen what horse racing is on the international scene. I know what it is here, and I salute each and every one of you for what you do. It just, I can't say enough about the business that you're in, and welcoming me the way that you have. I'm glad to be part of it. Look forward to learning more. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to make a few remarks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Two-year-old fillies, always one of my favorite categories because of the precociousness that exists with young horses. And this year, the two-year-old filly champion was Bound to Be Bad, owned by Taylor Mountain Farm, trained by James W. Casey, bred at his Taylor Mountain Farm. This is a dark bay or brown filly by Windsor Castle out of Bound 2, out of the mare Boundary, beginning her career with 3 consecutive wins, including that was the Triple Crown Nutrition Breeders' Classic on Breeders' Classic evening, also the West Virginia Futurity, which is the race that I believe we will watch of hers. She virtually assured her championship by winning these consecutive races and becoming juvenile champion. So let's watch her compete in the West Virginia Futurity. She is what I call grace combined with talent.
And they're off in the West Virginia Futurity. And Virginia Peach broke like a rocket. There goes Bound to Be Bad. 2 fillies are in front as they pass by the stands for the first time. Occasionally Classy and Derek's Boy with Henry standing there in between. And the early trailer is Candy for a Cause. If their female counterpoint and stablemate runs the point, it's Bound to Be Bad in front. Bound to Be Bad by a half length here from Occasionally Classy, who gets a perfect stalking trip in second. Virginia Peach takes back to be third. She's tucked in at the rail, and Derek's Boy is in the clear, racing in fourth, just 2.5 lengths off of Bound to Be Bad through an opening quarter and 24 seconds flat. It's 3 more lengths back to Candy for a Cause, who moves past Henry Standing Bear. Now the trailer. Up the backstretch they go, led by the 1-2 favorite, Bound to Be Bad. Her lead is a half length over Occasionally Classy. Derek's Boy now beginning to be asked for some run. He needs to respond here. Henry Standing Bear rallies up inside of him. Then comes Candy for a Cause, and Virginia Peach gives way to the back of the pack. Bound to Be Bad bounds clear by 3 inside the quarter pole. The half mile in 48 and 1, and Bound to Be Bad still confidently handled and in front by 6 lengths. Occasionally Classy is all in. Henry Standing Bear with Derek's Boy in a 4-wide. Candy for a Cause. Bound to Be Bad set down here in the final furlong, and she responds. Bound to Be Bad.
That was Bound to Be Bad, our 2-year-old West Virginia bred filly champion, owned by Taylor Mountain Farm, trained by James W. Casey. Champion 2-year-old colt this year. It was an interesting category. It was a local horse that was owned by Jill Daniel, trained by Crystal Pickett, and was bred by Francis Chip Daniel III. I enjoyed watching this horse's races because it wasn't the flashiness that this horse exhibited on the track. It was more of his determination and his grinding it out. This horse may have not been overly flashy, as I said, but what he was a good-looking youngster that had but one chink in his armor, and that occurred in a $100,000 stake at Colonial Downs. So once again, we witness a West Virginia horse going beyond the borders of our state and performing admirably. This horse had success in the Henry Mercer Memorial as well as the Vincent Mascarelli Memorial. It placed his seasonal earnings to close to the $90,000 mark. And let's watch his yeoman-like performance in the Vincent Mascarelli Memorial on Breeders' Classic night.
And they're off in the 33rd West Virginia Breeders' Classics. And the field for the Mascarelli Memorial passes under the wire for the first time, and the filly Let's Go to Dixie shows the way with Bold Valor holding his spot at the inside. Those 2, the first 2 into the clubhouse turn. Nico's keyed up, racing off of heels in that 3rd position. Tweet This right to his outside. The favorite Hypothesis had to tap on the brakes there. Hypothesis checked back to next to last as Campagna moves past him, and the trailer is Tamaqua. They head on to the backstretch after a 23-3 opening quarter mile. Bold Valor has found the front. He's a half length in front of Let's Go to Dixie's and a 3-wide Nico up the backstretch. Then comes Tweet This. Hypothesis has worked his way into the clear. Campagna rides the rail in 6th, and Tamaqua is wide at the back of the pack, but only 4.5 lengths would cover this entire field. Bold Valor, the first one into the far turn, the half mile in 47-4, Bold Valor in front, and still looking strong. Let's Go to Dixie's comes under pressure. There goes Nico. Tweet This at the rail, and Hypothesis begins to gather in the leaders, but he's forced to go wide. Bold Valor is collared by Nico, and now Hypothesis is set down. He's coming 3 wide after the leaders. Bold Valor cut the corner. Nico and now Hypothesis set down with Tweet This trying to work off the inside. A thriller in the Mascarelli. 16th to go. Nico in front. Here comes Hypothesis alongside. Hypothesis rolls right on by to win the Vincent Mascarelli Memorial Breeders' Classic.
That is our 2-year-old male champion, Hypothesis. Our 3-year-old filly of this year, it was a category that I don't think the board of directors had to have much consternation over. I think it was a very simple choice, and the winner of the champion 3-year-old filly is a gal that is heart as big as the state of West Virginia. Parisian Diva is not what you would call the biggest horse you'd see on the racetrack, but it's the one thing that I've learned in all the decades that I've worked on the track is you can't measure the amount of heart that exists in an individual, and that's something that she soundly possesses. She had wins in the It's Been Too Long Stakes, the Sylvia Bishop Memorial, the West Virginia Division Tourism Office Breeders' Classic, and I think those races stamped her model of consistency for the year. And I think it was an obvious choice as the number 1 in her division. I also want to thank Stacy Vines, her trainer, for being here. I know, Stacy, you had a rough time this year, and you talk about heart. I don't know whether a lot of you know, but Stacy had a rough go this year with a heart attack, and I think this horse probably was significant in getting him back to feeling better and being here with us. So, Parisian Diva, our champion 3-year-old filly this year, owned by Melinda Golden, trained by Stacy Vines, bred by Melinda Golden, and presenting the award will be our West Virginia Thoroughbred Breeders Association President, Mr. John Funkhauser. Parisian Diva.
And they're off in the West Virginia Tourism Office Breeders' Classic. It was an alert beginning for the favorite Parisian Diva, and she cruises up to take the lead outside of Sherwood Lady. Amelia Bedelia just off of the top 2 now from 3rd. CR Case's Legacy races in the clear from 4th. The Gray Ocean Lily is 5th, and She Figures and Carolina Bambina wide at the back of the pack. But a much better start to this race for Parisian Diva. She finds herself in front and showing the way on to the backstretch, the opening quarter, in an aggressive 23 seconds flat. Parisian Diva and J.D. Acosta take them onto the backstretch, now a length and a half in front of Sherwood Lady Amelia Bedelia, drafting in behind the leader 2.5 lengths away. Then it's 4 lengths back to C.R. Case's Legacy in 4th. They're followed by Carolina Bambina, then She Figures, and Ocean Lily is the trailer. Parisian Diva runs the point, 46-4 for the half mile, and J.D. Acosta hasn't moved on the favorite, and she moves out by 2 in front of Sherwood Lady. Here comes C.R. Case's Legacy rallying up on the outside. Amelia Bedelia going to need to find racing room. Parisian Diva comes to the top of the stretch. Her lead is down to a length. C.R. Case's Legacy comes after her. These two turn for home together, and Parisian Diva set down and put the fierce left-handed pressure, and she kicks back away from C.R. Case's Legacy. What a filly she is! Parisian Diva back on her game in the West Virginia Tourism Office Breeders' Classic.
Owner breeder Melinda Golden presenting the award is Mr. John Funkhauser for our champion 3-year-old filly, Parisian Diva. Whoever thought there'd be a Parisian influence in West Virginia? Over the last few years, it seems like it's been difficult sometimes to separate categories, especially when we have so many worthy candidates, and I think the same thing happened this year. We did have a couple of categories that we ended up with co-champions, and I know sometimes there's frustration factors probably on that, but at times when you have worthy adversaries, you have to recognize them both. And I think that's what happened in this 3-year-old male category. We have co-champions here. I'm going to talk about both of them, and then we'll watch each one of them compete individually on the screen. Our first 3-year-old male co-champion was Hero's Man. Once again, owned by Taylor Mountain Farm, trained by James W. Casey. I think the W stands for win, and bred by Taylor Mountain Farm. This is a Dark Bay by Charitable Man out of Hero's Siren, out of Sea Hero. This horse looked invincible in his first 3 career starts. They were all at the abbreviated distance. I think this horse has learned to mature and has been trained now to go a distance of ground. He was narrowly defeated in the West Virginia Lottery Breeders' Classic, and this horse has a unique combination of speed and stamina, which I believe is unique to his sire, Charitable Man. Let's watch his allowance win on the screen now. This is our co-champion 3-year-old male, Heroes Man.
And they're off. Heroes Man hops out of there on top and takes the lead immediately as they come by us for the first time. Totalitario away in good order. There goes On the Lamb and a 4-wide Burnin' Ring of Fire, but it will be Heroes Man in front by a neck from On the Lamb and Burnin' Ring of Fire. Totalitario drafts in behind the leaders now. From 4th, he's just 2.5 lengths from the top spot. It's already a gap of 7 lengths back to Mackinac, who races along the inside of See the King. The 2 trailers have 8 lengths to make up. And into the wind, quarter mile of 23 and 4. Heroes Man is in front by 3 parts of length from On the Lamb. Totalitario still riding the rail in that 3rd position with Burnin' Ring of Fire now back to 4th. And then it's 6 lengths back to Mackinac and See the King. It's still Heroes Man in front. On the Lamb, keeping him company, just got a left-handed reminder as they head for the far turn. They run a half in 47 and 4. Totalitario still in with a chance. He begins to make headway at the rail inside of Burnin' Ring of Fire. Mackinac and See the King have a lot of work to do. A quarter of a mile from home. Heroes Man's in front. Heroes Man by 3 parts of length. And he appears to have something left for the stretch drive. On the Lamb has been right there with him. Totalitario under a busy ride now. Then comes Burnin' Ring of Fire and Mackinac moving in from the back of the pack. Heroes Man turns them in, opening up a 3-length lead. Heroes Man ran 3 quarters in 1:12 and 4. And he opens up by 4 lengths coming to the wire. It's Heroes Man and Gerald Almodovar to take him all the way. A 2-length win over Totalitario. Then on the...
Our co-champion in the 3-year-old male category certainly was what you see in horse racing in rare instances, and I called perfection. This is a horse that did not lose a race in 2019, a very handsome late foal and full brother to Runnin' to Love Ya. He enjoyed the patient handling of his connections. I have to commend Tim and Judy Grams for the way they take care of their horses and the way they spot them, as well as the time that they receive when they need it. They are true horsemen. On the year, this horse win was in the West Virginia Lottery Breeders' Classics, and we'll watch that on the screen right now. Loving Touch is owned by Grams Racing Stable, trained by Tim Grams, and bred by Miss Leslie Cromer.
And they're off in the West Virginia Lottery Breeders' Classic. Rush to the Castle was squeezed back after the start. Killa D heads right out for the lead. From the outside, Heroes Man is forwardly placed with Loving Touch in between. K-Town Brass takes back to 4th at the rail. Bound to Be Good runs along in that 5th position. Then comes Cayenne Creek. After that tangled beginning, Rush to the Castle has inside position into that clubhouse turn. He runs along in 7th. Now moves up a spot to 6th. It's another 3 lengths back to Scottish Man. And the early trailer is Mary Mojo. The first quarter in 23 and 1. An honest enough pace set by Loving Touch. The full brother to the West Virginia Breeders' Classic champion and Charlestown Classic champion Runnin' to Love Ya shows the way up the backstretch. Heroes Man stalks him in 2nd. The outside Bound to Be Good Killa D is hemmed in at the rail as they head past the 3-ace pole. Then K-Town Brass moves up in between horses. Cayenne Creek on the far outside 6th. At the rail, Rush to the Castle will have to be much the best to overcome that start. And then Scottish Man. At the quarter pole, Loving Touch still running the point. Loving Touch already put to a full drive here at the 3/16 pole, but he's a length and a half in front of Heroes Man, who's going to try him here just outside the 8th pole. Loving Touch took an awkward step there, but still in front. Heroes Man, Killa D is all in. Rush to the Castle and down the center. Late rally from Scottish Man. Loving Touch has fended off all challenges so far, and he stays perfect in the West Virginia Lottery Breeders' Classic. A 2-length score over Heroes Man, then Rush to the Castle, a tough luck 3rd, photo for 4th between Cayenne Creek and Scottish Man. The final time, 1:25 and 4. He's got a long way to get to his brother, but he's off to a good start.
That was Loving Touch, our co-champion 3-year-old male of 2019. You know, Mr. Warner, just kind of looking through the room, and I hope you notice this as well, the room is littered with a lot of women. Not just men are involved in horse racing. It's a sport that lends itself to equality. And a lot of these women in this room work very hard.
It's a West Virginia classic, the Golf Tournament, the Gala, and the state's top thoroughbreds vying for the chance to be named West Virginia's best. The West Virginia Breeders' Classics. Breeding, training, racing. A stable of champions. Taylor Mountain Farm is a proud supporter of horsepower.